everyone, it's Mindy from My Creative Scoop, and I'm back with another Copic tutorial from My Favorite Things. This month I'm going to be using this stamp set called Birthday Bear and Friends, and I'm going to show you how to create a fur texture with this adorable little bear holding a cake. So let's get started. Okay, so we are going to be coloring our bear brown, so I'm going to be using E44, E43, E42, and E41. We're going to start with our E42, and I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to shadow in the areas that need to be shadowed. So a lot of people ask me questions on where should the shadows go, and I always like to keep it a little simple so that way, especially those who are just beginning to color with Copics, it's easier for them to follow, and it makes more sense to just think of where the shadows most make sense. So for me, the shadows mostly make sense. They're underneath his arm and underneath the cake, because the cake would be casting a shadow onto the bear's body, and also right around the cake, because since he's holding the cake close to his body, it's going to cast a little bit of a shadow on there. Then to create and make the face and the head look round, we're just going to go right back here, up the ears, and also underneath the hat. And on the inside of the little legs there. Then we're going to go ahead and take that E41. I'm just going to blend this out. And once you have it nice and blended out, we're just going to go ahead and do one swipe over, filling in the rest of the bear. That way the shadows still stay there. It's just very subtle shadows, and then we're going to go ahead and create some texture and make those shadows a little bit more defined. Okay, so now with our E43, we're going to go ahead and start making little dots. So I'm going to start with the darker colors in the shadowed areas that we've added first, but then we want to slowly bring them out throughout the whole body. So I'm just going to add a couple of dots. We're going to leave the center part of the tummy the lightest, so we're not going to add too much texture there, so that way it looks really smooth. So I've just added it in those shadowed areas, but so it has a little bit more of a smoother look, and so it looks a little bit more natural. We still have to add some dots in between. We just don't want to add as many. So stay really close together and a little more concentrated in those shadowed areas, and as you come out away from those shadowed areas, you are going to spread them out a little bit more, so that way you could still see where the shadows are. So you're going to do this throughout his whole body. Now we're going to go ahead and take that E42. We're going to do the same thing. This is going to be a little bit lighter, so we want to really kind of push down on the nib of our marker and really have those dots with the E43 spread out. So that way they're not just like spots where it looks like he has the measles, but actual fur in that textured look. So we want to kind of smudge it all together, but still doing that dot pattern, so that way it still creates that texture. And now we're going to do the same thing with the E41. We're going to press down even more all over. This way it really starts to blur those dots out and make them so they come together, just leaving that spotted texture without having those really precise dots. Now using this E41, I'm going to go ahead and just do one swipe over his nose so that way he's completely colored. Alright, so now we're going to add a little bit more definition using the E44. I'm just going to kind of flick underneath, just like when we first added those shadows. So we're just really going to define those shadowed areas. And also, right underneath his mouth, we want this part to look like it's popping up off of the bear, so it's not just flat on his face. We want to give it some dimension. Alright, so now with our E43, we're going to do like a heavy flick, blending out that shadow. Come down all the way around his tummy, and again do that heavy flick, blending out that E44. And again with that E42, we're going to do the same thing, do kind of a heavy flick. We just want to brush the nib across in a quick motion, so that way we're not blending out those dots, so that way that texture still keeps, but we're softening that harsh line of that shadow that we just went and defined a little bit more. I want to come down around the bottom part of his mouth to make that pop up off of the paper. And then with the E41, we're going to go back to dotting. I'm going to take that E44 again and just touch up, making it a little bit darker. And now I'm going to skip my E43. I'm going to go straight to my E42. I'm going to dot again, just kind of in the areas where we just added that E44. And let's do that E41. Let's go ahead and go right underneath the cake and do a heavy flick going down and up right there, just softening up that little bit of color. And then let's go ahead and take that N7 and N5 for his nose. We're going to go ahead and go right underneath the nose. This is with the N7. And then we're going to fill it in with that N5. Let's take some R30. Just touch up the inside of his ears. Just give it a little bit of a pink shade. Alright, so now for his hat and the birthday cake. So we're going to go ahead and make the cake chocolate. So I'm going to be using E29, E25, and E23. I'm going to start with my E29. And right underneath that frosting, I'm going to just trace, creating a little bit of a shadow so it looks like the frosting is raised above the cake. And right behind his hands. And I'm going to take my E25 and I'm going to dot. We want it to look kind of like a fluffy cake. So I want to give it a little bit of texture. And then we'll take that E23 and let's take that E29 now, go ahead and add a little bit of texture. And the E25. And again with that E23. Let's take some of that N7 and make a little bit of a shadow where his hands are. And then let's blend it out a little bit with E29. So I'm just going to add a couple of dots coming in a little bit more. There you go. And then we'll take the E23. Alright, so now let's take E33 and we'll go ahead and just fill in the frosting. Just fill her in there. And then we'll take that E25 and right underneath we're just going to kind of trace those scallops and along the top. And then we're just going to color in the candle solid. So picked a couple of colors here, and let's start with G82. And then we'll color one R32 and BV02 and B93 and Y02. And then we'll go ahead and color in the flames. Go ahead and use YR12. Now I'm going to go back with my E41 because I kind of went in with the chocolate right here on the back part. So I'm just going to add a couple of dots, blending it out into the bear's tummy. Going to fix that. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead, let's color his little party hat. Let's go ahead and use BV04 and BV02. So I'm going to start with my BV04. Go all along the bottom and then just up one side. And then I'll take my BV02 and you want to push the color out, and once it's nice and blended you go ahead and just fill the rest of the hat in. I'm going to go ahead and just color in that top one, and then I'm going to take my Y02 and color in one of the other ones, and my R32 for this little last piece of the little confetti there. Alright, so there you have it. I hope you enjoyed learning how to color and create that fur texture, and I will see you again next month. Have a great day.